Okay, so this right here is just a little snippet of the actual video that I've already put out, okay, about Alex O'Connor doing his response, okay, and this is one of the points that I want to emphasize on, because he completely got it wrong. Like, at this point he's just spouting stuff off, okay?
So part of the problem with some of these other books is they appear to be almost completely reliant on the other books. So you do have, and some of them have an agenda to them.
Like, what? I'm just going to underline that. He just said of the non-canonical Gospels.
Part of the problem with some of these other books is they appear to be almost completely reliant on the other books.
The problem here is with basically the first thing that anybody learns about the New Testament. Scholars think that Mark was written first, then Matthew and Luke were written later. Why? Because Matthew and Luke are reliant on Mark. And not just a little bit. More than 90% of Mark's Gospel is also in Matthew's Gospel. Mark has 660 verses in total. Over 600 of them are also in Matthew, often copied verbatim. It is undisputed that there is a literary dependence between Matthew and Luke and Mark. And almost everyone agrees that it's Matthew and Luke relying on Mark.
All right, so again, he's wrong about this as well, okay? He's simply wrong, okay? And this is going to be a quick thing, okay? Matthew and Luke are completely reliant on Mark, okay? Because they are the same story. They're telling the exact same story. That's not like, okay, they're completely reliant, because yes, Mark was written first, but Matthew and Luke didn't even have his account when they were writing theirs. They didn't have his account. Luke went after the other people, okay? Mark got most of his stuff from Peter. And then Matthew, he was there. And then, of course, John was there. You literally say in your rebuttal, in the original manuscripts of Mark doesn't even have a resurrection account.
And notice that the earliest version of Mark's Gospel does not contain any descriptions of post-resurrection appearances. It ends with the empty tomb and a disappeared Jesus, and suggests that he will appear to people, but it doesn't record those appearances.
But yet, Luke and Matthew do? And not just that. They have their own separate and distinct accounts about the resurrection. Matthew, right, says that the angel of the Lord appeared, okay, and he said that he is risen to the women that came, right? And then he showed himself to the guard. And then he showed himself to the rest of the disciples and said, look, go out, baptize them. What did we just read? Baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Spirit, and I am with you through the end of the age, okay? But Luke don't even talk about that. Luke don't even mention anything about that. And neither does Mark. Mark has zero to say about this. But yet Luke has the road to Emmaus we're about to get to. But he goes to the road of Emmaus, shows himself to many people, and then he shows himself to the rest of the disciples. So it's a different account. And then, of course, John has a totally different account. How can he say that Luke and Matthew are totally reliant on Mark when this is just simply not true? They didn't even have Mark's account. You know why? Because many scholars say, okay, that Mark was written for the Romans. They didn't have the account because it wasn't written to them. Matthew and Luke. It was not written to them, so they didn't have it. They were just writing their own gospel. They were not reliant on Mark. So look, man, you're completely wrong on this. Completely wrong, because they have their own resurrection accounts. Matthew and Luke don't even have the same account, which can tell you right there, Mark didn't have a single account about the resurrection, but yet Luke and Matthew do. So how are they reliant on Mark?